Hey, welcome. We're going to discuss a little bit about roads today. First, I'd like to mention that I've been all over the internet doing the research for this, and I'm going to read these names off because they're a little hard to memorize. www.ehow.com, went to Seneca, New York's history website, Auto Evolution, Money MSN, the NHTSA.gov site, CarInsuranceComparisons.com, and the Society of Automotive Engineers. Traffic roads have been around for a long time. As a matter of fact, the city of which is in Iraq currently, was one of the first cities that had road signs. Now, they were just little stones that kind of mentioned where you were going, but they were the first signs, and that was a long time ago. And one of the things that a lot of people don't realize, especially when they go overseas, is that, you know, they drive on the left-hand side of the road over there, and a lot of Americans say, it's the wrong side, it's the wrong side. And in reality, we are on the wrong side of the road. The way it started out was we drove on the left-hand side. Actually, we rode horses on the left-hand side of the road because that left our weapon hand on the right, which was closest to the individual coming toward us. This obviously was moved away from in the United States, and the reason for that was because the position of the back freight rider was on the back left, and this individual is who told them when it was okay to stop, to discern for when it was okay to unload the wagon. So because it was easier for him to see the particular positions, he took and moved the side of the road to the right hand side of the road for us. Now, to go to the history lessons, because now that we're on the right side of the road, mandatory registration of automobiles was one of the first traffic regulations in the United States, and it was actually done in New York. Started in 1901. Didn't cost very much, and everybody was required to register their vehicle. In 1903, William P. Eno wrote a book called Rules of the Road, and it started out with, he's considered the father of safety traffic. He's the one that introduced many of the items that we use today. He came up with a slower traffic keeping on the right, cars only passing the left, one-way streets, crosswalks, and even stop signs. In 1903, at about the same time, license plates were introduced in the state of Massachusetts. In 1912, Lester Wire created the first red-green traffic light. The first one was installed in 1914 on the corner of East 105th Street and Euclid Avenue in Cleveland, Ohio. Hopefully you guys can see this. This is a picture of one of the first traffic lights. You'll notice at the top it's got a green light, and at the bottom it's got a red light. And it was just a little bird box, and it had lights in it. Pretty cool. And that happened in 1912. And then 1917, Salt Lake City linked 6 intersections with the traffic lights. Now, the funny thing about that is a lot of people back then, now we're talking like 1917 at this point, and at that point they had a cop at every major corner that did the traffic. And one of the other things that might need to be noted is that traffic signals, as far as individuals driving down the road, had to be done in one of those, in the United States, you have to take the test, you have to tell which way you're turning, you have to know how to do it, even if your turn signals don't work. And for those of you who don't remember, let's see, is it in focus? Alright, look at that. Right turn with your arm straight up, your left arm straight up. Oops. Your arm straight up. And then you had a left turn with your arm straight out, and then you had your stop with your arm downwards at a 90-degree angle to the vehicle. But shortly thereafter, we started getting things like driver's licensing in 1919, And then automatic traffic lights were used in Houston in the year of 1922, so we've automated those little bird box lights. And in 1925, driver's testing as we know it began in New York City. And in 1939, Buick first featured the flashway directional signal only on the rear lights. Now this is a flashway directional signal. You'll notice a left turn, actually that's the right turn, the left turn, and then a stop. In 1940, instead of just on the rear of the lights, they also added it to the front, and they added a self-canceling mechanism. Now what a lot of people remember from driving, if you use your turn signals, you'll notice that when you're turning, it automatically turns off when you go click click a couple of turns of the wheel, just a little bit, and then that actually is what tells it, okay, when you turn the wheel back, you can turn off the signal. And that mechanism has been that way since 1940. In 2006, now we're into something a little more recent. In 2006, Response Insurance surveyed drivers of the Americans, and 57% of the American drivers admitted to not using their turn signals. 42% of those individuals said they didn't have the time, and 23% admittedly said they were too lazy. Pretty cool. In 2012, the Society of Automotive Engineers observed 12,000 cars in Dayton, Ohio, and they found a failure rate on lane changes alone of 48%. So 48% of people in Dayton, Ohio didn't use their turn signals. Now, according to MSN Money, neglected or improper turn signals cause more than 2 million car accidents a year. That is a lot of car accidents. And the CarInsuranceComparison.com ranks the worst driving states. They do this by comparing the fatalities per 100 million vehicle miles driven and failure to obey traffic signals, seat belts, drunk driving, tickets, and careless driving. And I have a full list, and if you want to know where your state is on the list, by all means send me a message inside the group for school and I will let you know. But the number one worst state is Louisiana, and they have 41 accidents per 100 million vehicles traveled, and they get 38 drunk driving tickets and a lot of careless driving with a total score of 220, and they rank number one. Now the thing about that is I live in South Carolina, and they are ranked number 2. Number 50, believe it or not, is Utah, with only 14 per 100 million vehicle miles traveled. And like I said, if you want to know where your state happens to fit on this, you can either send me a message, or you can go directly to CarInsuranceComparison.com, and they have the information. Now, the fatality that we've had in Louisiana has had 652 car accidents. In South Carolina had 806 car accidents, and this was in the year 2012. And this is from a different site. Now, as you can see, traffic has always been there. It's evolved. We've added different things like the turn signals, stop lights, only turn on the left turn if you got the green light on some of the, you get a little green directional signal on some of the lights depending on how busy your intersection is, and a couple other things that we've added through traffic to try to control and limit how many accidents happen per year. The majority of the laws in every state actually is about traffic and how we're supposed to drive. So I hope you've enjoyed this little history lesson on traffic, and that you always drive on the right side of the road.